This book is Neptune City, a short mystery set in New Jersey about an LA detective who comes back for a final funeral and gets pulled into his past and into complications he was not expecting. It is a fictional Neptune City, unlike the real one that actually does exist in New Jersey. However, it does carry many of the life background that many people in New Jersey have. And if anyone is interested, it's $2.99 as an ebook. So for the price of a coffee, you can get yourself a lovely little mystery. So with that, thank you. I shall start with chapter 1. Though Jim Lloyd had crossed the New Jersey state line some hours before, the long drive from states away through the summer night had not rekindled his memories. Busy as he was with the traffic and the constant mess of bugs spattering and smearing on his windshield, he gave a grim smile as another one hit with a pop, wondering if it was an omen. Not until he came to the sign did the ghosts of the past rise up and overcome him, and he had to pull over. Welcome to Neptune City, a seaside community. 15 years since he had graduated from high school here, and except for 2 almost drive-by visits, to attend the funerals of his mother and father, he had not returned. He was only coming back because of a plea from his cousin to attend one more funeral for Jim's aunt. He wouldn't have come, but the timing was convenient. Life hadn't been all bad here, of course, but enough to drive him from the place he'd been born and raised. It wasn't that just it was hard being working class in a community alongside the wealthy, or the never-ending drudgery of trying to scrape out a living in a tough economy. It was more the smothering atmosphere of hopelessness, of seeing others live the easy life just out of reach, while knowing it was never to be yours. The sense of always being inferior and always defeated before you'd begun was ingrained from birth. Some saw the ocean to the east as a barrier, something so big they could not navigate or cross, a wall of water that forcibly pinned them in place against the concrete highways of the state. Neptune City was hemmed in all around and overshadowed by larger, more well-known places, which some locals viewed as hostile territory. Born and raised here, these people would stay put upon their meager patch of turf like zoo animals in a cage. To others, the nearby cities were stepping stones to the outside world, where one could find sweet release in the broader range of existence. One reason the music of Bruce Springsteen was so popular here wasn't just because he was so local that he was of them and spoke to them about their lives. He showed the escape method. All you needed was an engine and 4 wheels and you could have it all. Release, someone to love you, and freedom. A car was a passport out. On the road, you could go anywhere and you could be somebody, not some dumb loser kid from a place of no dreams. Maybe it was a fantasy, yet it did happen for some. A few found it true, Jim included. It was one of the reasons he had driven here from California instead of flying, to keep his means of escape close at hand. Those who believed that they were trapped viewed a car only as a means of transport to their dead-end job with no future ahead of them, a series of years and a meaningless existence that slowly drained the soul. They drove around town in endless loops, which they could not break out of. Jim wondered about them, why they would not escape their tiny prison when the cage door was so obviously open. Was it that frightening to leave a known place, a known food and security supply for the raucous, unknown world beyond? He had done so and flourished. He was returning in a car, but only temporarily. Perhaps it was expectations. Having been told all their lives they were shit and never get anywhere through, sunk through that they bought it and accepted their fate. After all, New Jersey was the butt of jokes, a final put down by people who felt superior because they lived in other places. School was pointless, so why bother? And the prophecy would be self-fulfilled in each generation. Everyone before in your family had stayed here. Did you think you were better than any of them? Failure was the norm, so why try? Dreamers only get hurt. Accept your fate like cattle in the pen. The recipe for trouble was the boundless energy of youth, mixed with raging hormones and few outlets for the passions and desires. Then came the bubbling rage of injustice, demanding release, a wild desire to rebel which manifested in bad behavior, drinking, drugs, sex, crime, and fighting. Anything which said the person was alive, something to feel again, to get relief from the humdrum and boring, the pain of knowing you were trapped. But the passion so ignited usually ended in trouble and helped to close the trap for good on yet another soul. Alone in his car, Jim shuddered with the emotions welling up within him, rolling in like waves off the nearby ocean. He opened his mouth and took deep breaths and eventually got his thoughts under control. He knew he could certainly use a drink. The long drive from California had tired him, though it had cleared his head. But now his mind was troubled again. He had assumed escape meant no more passion about the past, but it had reached out and seized him with long talons. He had hoped to make peace with the ghosts of long ago. Succumbing to nostalgia, Jim drove to the Bayside Motel where his mother had worked for years as a maid. He intended to stay at least one night for old time's sake. He needed no directions, relying on long unused memory to take him there. But he was confused when he arrived, for he didn't see the familiar red neon sign for the Bayside, but a much larger and more upscale hotel chain. They must have torn down the old building and erected this one, new and modern. It looked like prosperity had finally come to the hardscrabble area. Progress, change, and more memories for the scrap heap. He wondered how much else had changed and didn't know if he wanted it to be so or if he feared losing everything from the past. Jim parked under the motel overhang outside the front doors and got out, grateful for the movement. He had driven almost 14 hours today, more than 700 miles, and was relieved to have the long trip finally at an end. He stretched and went inside to register and found they had rooms available. It would definitely be far more comfortable than the stodgy old Bayside. Bonus was that the bar was still open, so he wouldn't have to drive somewhere else. Even better, he probably wouldn't run into anybody he knew. After signing in and getting an electronic card as a room key, he drove around to park closer to his room. He took his suitcase out of the car trunk and set it on the ground. He looked inside the trunk at the bolted-down gun safe, which held his service revolver, another small pistol, holsters, and badge. It was reassuring to have them so close to hand. Another reason he had driven instead of flying, even though it did conjure memories of the murder 15 years before. The other reason he had fled and not stayed in contact with anyone from here. He wouldn't be needing the guns, so he left them safely locked in the car. I hope that gives a good flavor of what's to come. It sets it up that, man, there's going to be some complications.
When I read that first chapter, I thought, oh, here's a guy who has got his problems, and then you came to the gun safe, and I thought, okay, other people are going to have problems too.
That's it. It's there at the end because the first chapter has got to set up what happens afterwards, and so just looking at the gun safe and mentioning that, something's going to happen.
The fact that the sentence said he wasn't going to need it means the exact
He's going to need it. Yep.
They always need it.
But that's
why you wouldn't have bothered to mention it.
That's what you do in a mystery, right? You set the groundwork and you lay out what potential there is for things that can go wrong, and you're supposed to have things go wrong for your protagonist. They think something X is going to happen and Y happens, and they get pulled in, and it's their character and the arc of the story which determines what's going to happen from there.
So why did you set this in New Jersey? Because you usually
there's this great song. If you go on YouTube and you look up Neptune City, I don't know how I came across it, but it's a beautiful, haunting song with this bizarre video, and it was just so haunting. And I love the concept of Neptune City, one of these by the sea places. And I realized it's a real place, but I said it in a very fictional place. And New Jersey is stuck in the middle of everything. It is pinned against the ocean on the east, but everything around it is more famous and better and more wonderful. And these people in New Jersey are kind of stuck here. And that happens. I know so many people from New Jersey, and if you don't get out, you remain in a very small place of your life. You remain constrained, you remain restricted, and it's not a very good thing. And coming from Maine, I know all about this because northern Maine, Robin, very much northern Maine, where there was nothing there. There was no culture. There weren't very many people. Luckily, we're near Canada, so we had some culture coming from Canada, actually. But in New Jersey, it's a joke to consider culture. You know, and they're so close to New York. They could go to New York City and see all the culture they wanted, but they don't actually make that trip. They feel stuck in place and time. And it's just awful. And you have to get out to realize what you miss. But then when you come back and you think you've escaped it, the past just pulls you back and sucks you in.
My daughter used to live in Jersey City, and
My friend is from there, yeah.
yeah, and we would take the pass train from New York to Jersey City, and it was like going 1,000 miles.
Yeah, and to a different planet.
And to a different planet.
So did your hero drive all the way from LA to Jersey?
Yes. He
That is one hell of a long trip. I have
it is.
done
But
that.
you really need to think, and you really need to access what's going on in your life. That's a great plan. I've done it before. I've driven across the country from north to south and east to west.
Me
And
too.
you've got a lot of time for thinking on a trip like that.
By yourself?
Yeah. Well, yes, most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I went with other people, but a lot of times by myself. I used to go from Maine to Florida several times a year.
Yike.
Yeah.
That's
And North Carolina really is terrible. You just get past Virginia, like, there's another 3 hours through here, and another 3 to 4 hours through South Carolina. I'm in Georgia, and there's another faster there. I'm finally in Florida, and it's another 8 hours to get down from there. It's like, it just never ends.
I drove from Boston to LA when I moved to California with
Okay, so you did the reverse of that, yeah.
3 cats and all my junk in a very small car. And
Yeah,
it took about a week of driving, as I remember.
and about 1,500 miles of flat nothing in between the Rockies and the Appalachians.
I stopped every 100 miles, got out of the car and took a picture. And I don't know what's happened to those pictures. I was looking for them because I thought it would make a very nice,
Travelogue, yeah.
yeah.
Did you go down through Texas, Oklahoma, or did you go north through South Dakota?
I went through St. Louis because I had
Okay.
left a lot of stuff there. Because that's
Like
where I've been
Kansas?
living. And then I crossed, I eventually went south. I can't remember if I went through Denver on that trip. I don't think so. I think I headed south after St. Louis.
Yeah, Oklahoma's not a lot of fun, I gotta say. I was stopped by the police, and I mentioned, for some reason, I guess he was just checking, and I mentioned the sign that said "Don't stop to pick up hitchhikers," and I said, "Is that because of the prison?" And he looked at me and said, "How do you know about the prison?" I said, "I read The Grapes of Wrath." He gets McAllister prison, and the guy looked at me like I was from the moon.
Yeah, my dad is from McAllister.
Ah.
My dad grew up in McAllister,
Well-
Oklahoma.
That's gotta be exciting. I'm like,
During
it's
the,
like Concord here in Massachusetts. They put a prison right down where if somebody gets over the wall, they're into the civilian population. I'm like, who does that? No, put them on the islands and out in the middle of the desert and stuff like that. No.
So you prefer Alcatraz to
You know, oh man, I toured there, and that's a scary place. Wow.
versus San Quentin, which is surrounded by multi-million-dollar homes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can look out there and see why you were there because of them. Yeah. Oh, nice.
Ever been to the Portsmouth Naval Prison?
No, not the prison. No.
They will occasionally let you go through, and
Oh, I like that.
the place is just drenched in misery.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a current prison or a past prison?
No, it's not used for anything now. It's on this beautiful island right by the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, and they're trying to figure out we could make it into a hotel. Hotel with a large number of very small rooms.
When they say it has a bar, that's not the kind they mean. The bars are on your window.
I think the Peter and Paul Fortress, I'm messing up the name, in St. Petersburg, Russia, where Lenin's brother was kept for a while.
Wow.
And that was one of the triggers that led to the revolution, to
Interesting.
radicalizing him.
I did not.
I did tour that when I was spending a month in St. Petersburg some years back.
Oh, did you get to the Hermitage?
Of course, several times.
Oh, good. There is a 5-hour tour of that museum on an iPhone that is absolutely the most spectacular, beautiful thing you can see. They linger over some of the things, and then they have some people walking through and some interactive things, but it's just a gorgeous tour of that museum. And
wow.
It's lovely.
We got a private tour of the gold rooms with one of the curators because we all of us speak
Sarah,
Russian.
you've got to see that. You would really enjoy this.
Yeah.
If you get back to the Hermitage and you haven't gone to the gold rooms, that's one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen in my life. But you need to go on a special tour. Rooms, plural, stuffed with gold things.
Yeah.
You see one room and you're overwhelmed, and then you go to the next room.
It's like Versailles, I know.
And the next room.
How much beauty can you put in one spot?
And then after you finish seeing the first set of rooms, they say, oh, we have to go see the second set of rooms, which are on the other side. And they lock up the first set and take you to the other side of the museum where there's more modern gold stuff.
Yes, since it is tough to get there, we enjoyed the tour, the video tour.
I didn't know there was a good online tour.
5 hours. And it's filmed on an iPhone, but you wouldn't know it because it looks like a camera crew got in there and did the most spectacular thing ever. If you see Russian Ark, the movie Russian Ark is a 2-hour tour.
I've seen that one.
Okay, yes. This is 5 hours, and they really just take their time and go through so much of it.
Dale, have you seen the Netflix series, The Road to Calvary?
No.
Fabulous.
Oh, gotta see it.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I'll write that down.
If you speak Russian, the Russian in it is just beautiful. It's some of the clearest.
I'll ask the guys at work.
We just finished watching it last night, and I was relieved that everybody wasn't dead at the end because it sounded like they were going to be.
Well, the
Tried watching a Russian movie a few weeks ago.
is set up to make you think everyone's going to die.
Yeah, really.
I haven't got to the end yet.
Oh.
I just started it after.
Sorry to spoil it for you.
All right. I don't necessarily think that everybody's dead at the end is a spoiler.
Well, if it's a Russian movie, everybody's got to die at the end, right?
No.
Not necessarily. There are some happy endings. I can't remember any.
A happy ending in Russian.
It was actually apparently a true story.
Wow.
Because at the end they tell you, what happened to these people after. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to read A Gentleman in Moscow just for the quarantining in one place. It's like we complained about a few weeks, and he was there 50 years in the metropole. So
could have been worse.
It could have been the Astoria in Budapest.
Could have been the Lubyanka.
Yeah. So Are you completely at home, Dale?
Yes, yes. I'm absolutely enjoying life as a hermit. I didn't realize that I'd gotten so old I don't even want to see other people anymore.
And yet here you are.
Yes.
Well, this is okay. This is the extent. I mean, people think of me as an extrovert, but I realized, no, I'm really a total introvert because this is fine by me. If I could stay here for the rest of them, I'm getting so much done writing wise. It's phenomenal. I put out this book. I finished another book. I did a great story. I'm going to finish another book this week and a nonfiction book. It's like, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
That's the thing when you stop going out all the time to all these activities and functions and going physically to these other places. If you stay in and keep you from getting bored and depressed and, you know, despairing, you just write and write and write. It's the cheapest and best therapy in the world.
Definitely the time it takes to go to and from things chews up more of my life than
I was
really
going out like 3-4
stop
nights a
doing
week for a couple of things, for all these activities. And it was tiring. And I was like, I need a break from this. I didn't plan on this, but
But there you are.
But
Yeah.
there you are. And then I was in despair for like a month, and I was in really black depression, and I really wasn't focusing or able to muster any enthusiasm for anything. And then I just said, you know what, I've got to get writing, because writing is my way out. Writing is my defense against the dark arts, as it were. And it worked. And it's just been, I've been pouring it out, because I go, well, we could be dead in a week. So what's important to me? Getting out all this work, all these ideas that I have, all these plans that I have to get this work out.
Wow.
I'm going to be on somebody's podcast on Saturday talking about survive it. And really, that's how we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave Zeltzerman is a pro writer, and he's been a very good friend. And he talked me down off the ledge one day. I was just like, what's the point? We're just all going to be dead in a week. So, and he very much talked me off the ledge and gave me some inspiration and some hope, and said, no, you got to keep going. It's not that bad. And he was a big help in all this.
If we're going to be dead in a week, why not write?
Exactly. There's a great line in Hamilton. It's like, why do you write like you're running out of time?
As you are.
Because he was so productive. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to put that in my forwards. This could be the last piece of work I ever get published. So it matters. So there it is.
So what is the lighthouse behind you?
Oh, that is the Portland Head Light in Portland, Maine, the most photographed and painted, most famous lighthouse in the world. Edward Hopper did that print, and it is just fabulous. It is the most wonderful spot out at Fort Williams in Cape Elizabeth, Maine, right outside of Portland. And it is the most beautiful. It's a huge state park, and it is, you go there and you just are rejuvenated. You recharge. You see the ocean crashing against the rocks. There's a little beach down there. There's beautiful wide open spaces. It's got history. It's got some old fort ruins in it.
And there are no overhead wires, so people fly kites there.
Oh no, no overhead wires there. No, this is Maine.
No, it's underground because it's a fort.
Yeah, they had batteries there for several wars that luckily never saw any action, but there's some ruins there that you can explore and go into. And having been around there for so long, I said, I have to set a climactic scene out here. In my first mystery, my first Zach Taylor mystery, A Memory of Grief, he had his climactic scene with the bad guys out there at Fort Williams in the middle of a storm with the waves crashing, the rain coming down. There's all these city boys with guns walking around there, and he's just scampering around with no weapon, just trying to stay alive and take them down. And it's just marvelous. I was so happy to be able to use that. And this last year, about just over a year ago, I took two friends up who had both read the book, and I started showing them all the spots I had been, and they were like, oh, that's the spot where that happened. Oh my God. Oh, it's just how you described it. That's great.
What's the name of that book, Dale?
A Memory of Grief.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you said A Memory of Greece. I thought, how does
Grief.
it
No,
work
no, no,
either?
Grief. It's from the Epic of Gilgamesh. Actually, that one, if you go as an ebook, that's also $2.99. So again, for the price of a coffee, you get the first in a great series of books. There's 6 of them out now. And
And
that's
But I'll
number one.
have to forego 2 cups of coffee, and that could be.
I know. Well, $2, 2 cups of Starbucks. I mean, you can do it at home for much cheaper.
I do it at home. I roast my own coffee.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, we're all doing it at home while Cafe Nero's closed.
And Dale, what's your last name?
Phillips, Dale T.
Phillips.
Phillips. If you search on that, it will come up with my website as the first hit. And it's got all the books listed. It has
Ah, okay.
everything with links, all kinds. There's 6 books in the mystery series. There's some standalones. There's 10 books of short stories. There's nonfiction. So plenty of things to read while we're sequestered.
And Dale, if you want to send me, like, if you have anything that I could put up showing the books, like a JPEG, something like that.
Single books, or because I've got like 20 books. I mean, that's the thing. So how many do you want?
Maybe the series and Neptune City.
Okay, thank you. Yep, those are the mysteries. So, yep.
Yeah. Alrighty. It is now 5:55.
Oh my,
5:56 actually.
that was a quick hour, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You had so much fun with us, right?
I did. I love talking about writing and talking about what we do. That's where I get enthusiastic, because to me, this matters. The art of creation. I'm like any artist or any musician who has to create, and I can't do what they do, but I can use the words, and I can make those words come alive and give people that emotion, that story, that sense of wanting to belong to that world for a time and take them away from all the troubles. And that's what I think really good writing means, is to give meaning to our lives. It's telling truth by telling lies.